Sam had come to the big smoke, full of hope and dreams. Dreams which turned to dust. And after 18 months of failure, abject failure, he wound up on the graveyard shift, guarding one of the black towers rising above the city's financial district. It could have been a whole lot worse, Sam thought ruefully. For the good thing about the graveyard shift, midnight to 8 in the morning, was the solitude. There was no one around. No office workers, no managers, no cleaners, and no other guards even, unless you counted the guys in the lobby, 35 floors below. No, Sam existed in splendid isolation, which suited him just fine. The work was easy. Once an hour, between midnight and 6 a.m., he did a patrol of the 5 floors under his protection, looking for anything out of the ordinary. And there was never anything out of the ordinary. Although walking alone through shadowy offices and passageways in the middle of the night would have creeped most people out. When Sam wasn't on patrol, he was at the security desk, drinking instant coffee, smoking cigarettes, and reading vintage horror. Lovecraft, M.R. James, Le Fanu, Bram Stoker, James Herbert, and he never got creeped out. Never. Until it was early spring. While doing his rounds, Sam had paused before one of the big picture windows in the executive suite and looked out at the ripe full moon looming over the metropolis. And then he returned to the security desk and, lighting an export A, picked up his current book, a collection of vintage horror stories edited by the Reverend Montague Summers. His current story was a vampire tale, Carmilla, by Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. He loved saying that name, Joseph Sheridan Le Fanu. It had seemed an appropriate tale for the night of the full moon. But after a while, Sam found he was nodding off and thought he would make himself an instant coffee in the staff cafeteria. Sam took the elevator up to the 39th floor, mug of Encore instant coffee in hand, just needing some hot water. But when he unlocked the door to the darkened cafeteria, he paused. A mysterious smell or scent hung in the still air. Not the usual kitchen aromas, but more of a lady's perfume smell. Musk? Was it musk? But that was as far as he was able to describe it. It was the scent of a woman. But as to what kind of perfume, Sam was the first to admit that women were a mystery to him. One woman in particular. But why should he smell lingering perfume in a closed room in a locked building? He was the only person in the lunchroom, and there were no other people on the 5 floors he guarded. And no one had been here for hours. They did turn off the air at night. That must be it. No airflow to dissipate any lingering smells. Anyway, his throat was dry, and he needed a coffee. At around 4 a.m., he went on patrol, and a funny thing happened on the 37th floor. On exiting the elevator, Sam turned on the lights for the entire floor and began making his way through the maze of corridors and cubicles. When he was at the farthest point from the elevators and the light switches, the lights went out. Sam was freaked. Not because he couldn't see. He had a flashlight, and the all-around windows let in light from the surrounding buildings. No. What was freaking him out was, who turned out the damn lights? He was supposed to be alone. Supposed to be. Sam made his way back to the elevator bank. Hello, hello, anybody here? Anybody here? But he didn't see or hear any intruders. He turned the lights back on and resumed his patrol. And about halfway round, the lights went out again. Sam raced back to the elevators, but nothing. No one. Maybe the damn lights are on a timer, he wondered. I'll check with the day shift, see if they know anything. Sam completed the rest of his rounds on the 37th and the other floors without further incident. When Sam got back to his desk, he had no sooner lit another cigarette when a motion light went off in the executive suite. A bank of TV monitors sat by the desk, but when Sam looked at the screen, which had suddenly lit up, there was no one there. No sign of movement. Just a corridor, now brightly lit. Sam stared intently at the small black and white screen, and suddenly, she was there, in the corner of the frame. And he knew her. She was tall. Very tall for a girl. 6 feet, but slender. Slender and slim, with shoulder-length chestnut hair. He had gone to school with her, back when he believed in higher education. Hell, he'd even spoken to her. But he didn't know her name. She was the girl, the one at the periphery of his life, as she always seemed to be at the periphery of his vision. Sam generally saw her at a distance, on the other side of the cafeteria or the pub, at the far end of a corridor, walking in from the parking lot, always in a crowd, always at a distance. But he was instantly aware of her whenever she was in his vicinity. He would look up and see her, and their eyes would lock in recognition, no matter how far away. They were somehow, in some strange way, connected. But Sam had only one conversation with her. Sam had gone over the river to the US of A with a bunch of his drinking buddies and had wound up in a multi-level disco in the falls. Looking over the balcony from the top floor, he had seen the mysterious lady down on the ground level, standing over to one side, apparently alone. Sam was drunk and too lazy to budge, and was still perched by the rail minutes later when he felt someone gently touch his arm. "Hello," was all she said, to which Sam said, Who are you?" It turned out she was studying Eastern European history, and to Sam, as he gazed at her pale, oval face, her luminous gray eyes, she looked vaguely Slavic, perhaps Russian. She stood close to him in order to be heard above the sound of the disco, and he could smell her perfume, a heady and very sensual musk. Musk. He was on the verge of asking her if he could get her a drink, when Richie barged up and bellowed, "Come on, asshole, we're going for a blue cheeseburger." And when Sam tried to open his mouth Richie added, "She ain't interested in you. Come on, unless you want to walk back to Canada." Sam went to offer an apology to his mysterious companion, thinking maybe I could get a ride back with her. But she was already walking away. Christ, he still didn't know her name. She'd talked a lot, but never told him her name. Sam saw her around a few more times, but always at a distance, and he never spoke with her again. And now the same girl was apparently roaming around in the executive suite of a locked office building at 4:26 in the morning, on the 40th floor of a locked office building at 4:26 in the morning. Sam rode the elevator up and began looking around. "Hello? Hello? Anyone here? Is there anyone here? Hello?" Nothing. No one. Just the lingering smell of perfume. Musk. The same perfume he noticed in the cafeteria. And then it all came back to him. The girl standing next to him in the disco years before, the scent of her perfume. It was the same perfume the girl had worn, a sultry and sensual musk. Sam heard the bell of an arriving elevator. He was on the far side of the executive suite and ran as fast as he could. But the elevator had already gone. Sam hit the button and waited impatiently. Come on, hurry up. He rode down to the lobby. "Did you see a woman just now get out of the elevator?" he yelled at the lobby guard, who just laughed and asked Sam what he had been smoking. Sam raced through the revolving doors and out onto King Street, looking right and left. There weren't many people around, but 2 blocks further east, turning south on Bay Street, he saw the girl's silhouette. She turned and looked back at him. Their eyes locked. Sam went back to the building, ignoring the questions and comments of the guards in the lobby, and rode the elevator back up to the 35th floor, where he sat slumped at the guard station, chain-smoking cigarettes and trying to make sense of the events of the wee small hours. But they didn't make sense. The mystery lady. Who was she? Who was she? The executives and office workers began arriving after 6:30 a.m., so Sam made a concerted effort to pull himself together and start opening procedures. But he must have still looked upset, for Ernst, his supervisor, had no sooner waddled in before he said, "What's the matter with you?" Sam tried to brush it off, but eventually Ernst got the whole story out of him. "You know what your problem is, Sam?" Ernst said sententiously. "Your problem is you need to get laid." "Ah, gee, thanks for the sage advice." "I could arrange something for you, my friend." "Yeah, and how many tons is she?" Sam got off at 8 a.m. He usually grabbed a breakfast of bacon and eggs at an old greasy spoon on Lower Bay Street before taking the long ride up the University line for home. But first, he headed for the brand new in 1983, Instant Tellers in the lobby of the Bank of Montreal skyscraper to get some needed coin. And it was there. There, across the humongous lobby, he saw the girl, the one at the periphery of his life, as she always seemed at the periphery of his vision. Sam generally saw her at a distance, on the other side of the cafeteria, or the pub, at the far end of a corridor, walking in from the parking lot, always in a crowd, always at a distance. But he was instantly aware of her whenever she was in his vicinity. He would look up and see her, and their eyes would lock in recognition, no matter how far away. And their eyes locked now. She stood waiting for him as he walked across the huge marble floor towards her, her long black overcoat giving her a gunslinger look. As he approached, her luminous gray eyes were magnets, drawing him to her, both physically as well as psychically. And then he was facing her, close enough to smell the heady musk of her perfume. Hello, he said lamely. Sam had a way with words. Not. Do not go to work tonight. Why not? Do not go to work tonight. Call in sick or quit, but do not go to work. Otherwise, you will not be alive this time tomorrow. So that was really you? In the executive suite? She didn't deny it. But what's going to happen tonight? Is something going to happen to the building? I can say no more. I have done too much already. But there are forces surrounding you that aim for your destruction. For the last time, do not attend work tonight. And then she was gone. 1 second, Sam was talking to her face to face. And then, in the blink of an eye, she vanished. Gone. Just gone. Sam was looking wildly around the lobby when a snotty voice said, "Would you mind moving, please?" Sam turned to see a well-dressed yuppie regarding him. Him in his security uniform, with annoyance and disdain. Mumbling an apology, Sam got out of the way. Sam was no longer hungry, so he took the long ride back to the burbs. Sam had a basement flat in the boondocks at the edge of town. The first thing he did after getting home was to grab a cold X from the fridge, sitting down on his saggy couch to drink it, still wearing his security uniform. In fact, Sam was so agitated, he didn't at first notice the scent in the air. A sultry musk. Sultry musk? Had she been here? Instantly, Sam was on his feet. It didn't take him long to search his one-bedroom apartment, although he lingered momentarily in the doorway of his bedroom in vain hope. But she wasn't there, of course. Sigh. Maybe I should let Ernst hook me up after all, he said to himself. And then Sam did what troubled men have done since time immemorial. He got drunk. And when he got drunk, he liked to go outside. So later that morning, he stuffed his pockets with a couple of stubbies and shambled off into the woods at the top of the street. It was a semi-rugged patch of deciduous trees, bisected by dirt paths, sitting on the edge of a reservoir. There were a few picnic tables around, but it was a wild park, and Sam encountered few people any time he walked the rough trails. It had been a cool spring, and while some of the trees were sprouting leaves, most were still barren with gray skeletal branches. Sam waited until he was out of sight of the nearby road, then cracked a fresh beer, raising the bottle to his lips and taking a long, bitter swig. Sam hid his beer behind his back as he looked wildly around. Had the cops or somebody seen him drinking in the woods? But there was no one there. He hurried further into the trees and came to a place where the path dipped down into a little hollow, where he would be out of sight and could drink in peace. But as he reached it, he heard a voice call, "Sam." He ran down into the hollow, but there was no one to be seen, and no place anyone could hide. And when he got to the very bottom, he heard the voice again. "Sam." Sam climbed up the other side, and came out of the depression into a glade which held a few picnic tables and some embedded rocks which were large enough to sit on. But there was no one there, and no sign anyone had recently been there. "Sam." The voice came from a side trail leading down to the reservoir. Sam went down to the very water's edge, but did not encounter a single living soul. He sat down on a fallen tree trunk, a place where he had often sat when he wanted to think or smoke. What was happening to him? That voice, was it real or simply in his mind? The beer didn't help him think, and was it the girl's voice? If only he could hear it again, more slowly. And then it came from every corner of the thicket. "Sam, Sam, Sam, Sam." He stood, trying to hear clearly amidst the cacophony of sound. Was it her voice? He couldn't tell. He was almost sure, on the verge of recognition, but the repetition echoed, "Sam, Sam," utterly confused him. It had suddenly become very dark. It was early afternoon, but it felt like dusk, the dark clouds gathering overhead. Sam drained his beer, tossed the empty into the bushes, and set off for home. At first just walking, but then starting to run, as the voices surrounded him, repeating his name over and over and over, and becoming increasingly menacing. He had to get out of there. He had to get out of there. It had begun to rain, and he barely made it back home before the skies opened up in a torrential downpour. The apartment was filled with the scent of sultry musk. Her scent, her smell. He searched through the apartment, but of course, he was alone. All alone. Sam lay down on the couch and passed out. Sam woke up to find he had somehow stumbled off to bed, but with his clothes on. The first thing he noticed was the bright light shining in the hall outside his room. Is someone in the apartment, he thought? sitting up with a start. What are they, shining a flashlight or something? And then he relaxed and laughed as he realized it must be the light from the full moon shining in through his front window and down the hall. Amazing how bright it got. Sam relaxed until he realized he could hear someone moving around in his living room. Sam jumped up so fast, he didn't even have time to call, "Who's there?" And as he strode down the short hall, he saw in the dim light of the room the silhouette of a tall, thin woman. The woman. The one at the periphery of his life, as she always seemed at the periphery of his vision. Sam generally saw her at a distance, on the other side of the cafeteria or the pub, at the far end of a corridor, walking in from the parking lot, always in a crowd, always at a distance. But he was instantly aware of her whenever she was in his vicinity. He would look up and see her, and their eyes would lock in recognition, no matter how far away. But by the time he stumbled into the living room, she had vanished. But in the air, he could detect the scent of musk, sensual musk, her scent. Sam was too perturbed to think about going back to bed. Besides, it was time to get ready for work. But as he walked to the lonely bus stop, Sam couldn't help experiencing a sense of foreboding. The rain had ended, but the roads were wet. It was cold, with patches of clammy mist in the night air. The light of the full moon was almost too intense. The streets were deserted, and for once, Sam found himself wishing to be surrounded by the usual crowd of commuters. The bus to Wilson Station was empty, as was the subway car, which took him down to the black towers of the financial district. And Sam had the unusual experience of traveling across the huge metropolis without speaking to a single human being. It was like traveling through the city of the dead. He observed a curious incident as he made his way down King Street. Directly across from his building, an old black Lincoln Town Car was pulled to the curb and was being worked on by several lean, dark men dressed entirely in black. They seemed to be changing a tire. The car had tinted windows, so it was impossible to see anyone inside. As Sam passed the car, the men stopped their work and turned in unison and stared at him with cold, intense, dark eyes, which Sam found so unnerving he automatically turned and hurried into his building. In the lobby, someone finally spoke to him. The lobby guards, who were taking the piss at his expense. "Where's your lady in black?" Tom barked from the security desk. "She wasn't in black," Sam said, shaking his head in disgust. Ray, older, wiser, was staring out at the street. "What's wrong with the Link?" "Oh, they appear to be changing a tire." Ray grunted. The whole thing appeared out of thin air. They weren't there 5 minutes ago. Well, they've got a crew of weird-looking bastards working on it. "Must be the full moon," Ray said. And with that, Sam hopped the elevator to the 35th floor. The evening shift reported all quiet on the security front. After they left, Sam made himself a coffee, lit an export A, and settled down to read a bit before his first set of rounds. It may have been his general uneasiness, or maybe it was the full moon, or perhaps he was just tired. But Sam became engrossed in the old weird story, engrossed to the point of forgetting his rounds. He might have sat there all night, reading till dawn. But suddenly, he became aware of an unusual scent in the air, the sensual musk which had been haunting him. Sam got to his feet and looked around the reception area, but there was no one there. Then he checked the bank of security cameras. Still nothing. Sam forced himself to calm down. He would do a complete check on all floors, and if there was anyone there, man or mystery woman, he would find them. Grabbing his radio, he set out. He started on the 35th floor and found nothing, but he noticed the heavy scent became stronger as he rose, floor after floor. The smell of perfume was much stronger in the executive suite, so intense it almost felt liquid, as if the walls, the carpet, the ceiling had been drenched in musk, and the scent had replaced the very air. It was so extreme, Sam felt his head begin to reel, and he also felt sick to his stomach. He could see halos around the lights, and everything seemed to be turning amber. I have to get some fresh air quick, or I'm going to bloody pass out, Sam said to himself, but he actually said it out loud. He went up the stairs leading to the roof and had reached the halfway point when he felt cold, fresh air tumbling down the stairwell. The door to the roof was open. Open? Open? How was that possible? A camera was mounted above the landing, which led to the door to the roof, and he had looked at the monitor, and he had seen the door had been shut. It had been shut. Shut! But now it was open, with cold, misty night air pouring down the steps. Sam stumbled out onto the roof. The surface was wet from the mist, and the wind had picked up, so that he had to grab his uniform cap to keep it from being blown away. And she was there. She was standing at the very edge of the roof, balancing on the abyss, her coat wrapped around her like the wings of a gigantic bat. She was standing at the very edge, but she wasn't looking down or at the myriad lights of the city, or even at the intense full moon. Instead, her head was turned towards him, her luminous gray eyes flashing, as she said in a low, sultry voice, "I told you not to come to work tonight." "What? Please, you're too close to the edge. Please, back away." "Why, Sam, are you afraid?" "Please, the wind. Please step back." He would have called her by name, but he had never known her name, had he? The woman didn't move. Again, Sam stepped forward, tentatively, timidly, trying to avoid any sudden movements which could make her lose her balance. They were 40 stories above the cold, hard street, and the night winds were blowing so hard. He had managed to get within a few feet of her, almost close enough to make a grab for her, when she spoke again. "Remember that night? Oh, so many years ago, in the falls. How could I ever forget? Why didn't you take me in your arms? I will now! And then she was in his arms, and she was saying, You are mine. You shall be mine, and you and I are one forever. And then their lips met, and Sam felt like he was flying, literally flying through space. The ambulance and paramedics arrived very quickly, but Sam was pronounced dead at the scene. His head was squashed in. After all, he had fallen 40 stories, straight down. A few blocks from the flashing lights, a tall, lithe woman, enfolded in a long black coat, which made her look like a monstrous bat, got into the back of an old Lincoln Town car, which slowly drove away and vanished into the night. Sam's end was eventually ruled an accident. But on the security desk, Ernst found his book, open to Carmilla, by Sheridan Le Fanu. A pencil lay across the page and seemed to point to the following words. Think me not cruel, because I obey the irresistible law of my strength and weakness. If your dear heart is wounded, my wild heart bleeds with yours. In the rapture of my enormous humiliation, I live in your warm life, and you shall die. Die, sweetly die, into mine. I cannot help it. As I draw near to you, you in your turn will draw near to others, and learn the rapture of that cruelty, which yet is love. They say there is someone for everyone. Well, Sam sure got his. The end. Are you sure? WSJ here. Poor Sam. Thank you so much for listening. On this channel, I tell original ghost stories and weird tales. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please share it, drop a like, or leave a comment. I try to answer all comments when possible. And I hope you'll consider subscribing. Consider subscribing for more of the grotesque and phantasmagorial. How's that for a word? Phantasmagorial. Phantasmagorial. Phantasmagoria. As a new channel, new subscribers are a real encouragement. Believe me, they make my day. So till next time, stay hungry.